How ethical is really ethical fashion? I'm Valentina and welcome to my Life Without Plastic. Hello and welcome back, my Eco Fam. Welcome back to another week and another episode in my journey. Today, we're going to continue talking about fashion. So in episode 12, we talked about donated clothes, which seems to be one of the most obvious ways to get rid of your clothes. And then in the last episode, we discussed fast fashion and the consequences it has not only on the environment, but obviously on many people involved in this industry. And today, we're going to be talking about ethical and sustainable fashion. And as we've learned so far, even actions that we consider good or ethical or even sustainable, they all still have consequences. Let's jump right into the very first positive argument, the very first argument in favor of ethical fashion, which is that ethical fashion is sustainable. In addition to treating workers fairly, ethical fashion is based on sustainability. This means prioritizing environmentally friendly practices throughout production and making a product that has a lower impact on the environment. What does ethical fashion mean for sustainability? Well, clothing is made from eco-friendly materials such as organic, pesticide-free, non-GMO cotton, and so on. Just to mention a few, clothing is also safe for people and the environment, avoiding any materials that contain, any toxins and any harmful chemicals. Also, clothing is made through sustainable practices that reduce water consumption and waste production. Those are two very big problems that we actually tackled last episode. And lastly, clothing is also made using natural energy and avoiding pollution. Also, you could do the same type of investigation online to learn if a clothing brand is actually sustainable. Usually, the best sustainable clothing brands will have passionate messaging about this on their site, in their marketing, on their social media, and so on. Now, we do have to be aware of what is called greenwashing. And this actually brings me to my very next argument here, which is also our very first argument kind of against ethical fashion. And now this argument is not necessarily against ethical fashion as a whole or ethical fashion as a principle, as an idea, as a value, but instead it's a critique, I would say, against what ethical fashion has sort of become nowadays. And what it's become is a label. And there's a very big problem with fashion brands that call themselves sustainable. Sustainable, eco-friendly, socially and environmentally conscious are at the moment some of the buzziest in the industry. They give both emerging and established labels a newfound do-good, feel-good purpose that goes beyond simply selling clothes. And it also goes beyond raking in a profit. But really, what does it all mean? Fashion lags behind food and beauty because there's less of a personal investment. We found that people are more motivated by personal impact rather than environmental, she explains. It's been easier to get consumers engaged with food because it's something that goes in your body. With beauty, it goes on your skin. Plus, it's incredibly confusing. If designers struggle with the complexities of sustainability, then how can we expect consumers to figure out which issues to actually care about? It's like you need a PhD in sustainability to go shopping. To answer the overarching question here, no, a fashion brand can never be truly sustainable. But what it can do is work towards making a positive impact and addressing issues. And on consumer level, there's a way to make a difference, however small that may be. It may seem extremely small at first, but understanding where your clothes come from can truly make a difference. So now this is kind of one way to criticize what we consider ethical or sustainable fashion, right? There's so many brands that call themselves sustainable and put labels, but what exactly stands behind those labels? How true are those labels, right? So to sum it up, it's a pretty questionable argument if a business can truly be 100% ethical and sustainable. There is just so much that goes into satisfying the requirements of being able to call your business sustainable or ethical. Like we just saw in this one in this one article, what is better, sourcing organic cotton from another country or using non-organic cotton but locally? Which one is going to be better, right? There's a lot of controversial questions that go into it, and not really a standardized way to determine which practices are actually considered sustainable and which ones are just buzz in the end of the day. Having ethical fashion brands can definitely be beneficial to the local economy. How so? Well, buying local, and this is not just in fashion, in many other industries as well, but fashion is a big one. So buying local definitely improves the local economy because community businesses keep and create jobs for local workers. They retain local manufacturing facilities and they maintain control of the labor standards. What happens behind the Made in the USA label, right? So we're talking now in this previous argument in favor of it that it's so great to have local ethical brands, right? But what does actually happen behind the USA label? Many concerned Americans have vowed to only buy clothes with the Made in the USA label to avoid supporting companies tied to sweatshops. But that label isn't always enough to ensure that the workers who made your clothes were not exploited. The United States Department of Labor defines a sweatshop as any factory that violates two or more labor laws, such as those pertaining to wages and benefits, working hours, and child labor. Today, most documented cases of U.S. sweatshops occur in California and New York. So the most prominent violation was that factory workers routinely were not making the federal minimum hourly wage because they were paid by each piece they sewed and cut rather than by the hour. The Department of Labor also reported that most workers were often putting in 10 to 12-hour days, 7 days a week, with no overtime pay. Son said that under the piece rate system, she has to work 60 hours to 75 hours a week to earn $300. Although a state law is supposed to ensure that employers make up the difference, so workers get paid the minimum wage, the U.S. Labor Department found wage violations in 85% of the California garment factories it visited. We tend to think sometimes that all of these controversial problems happen, in some place far, far away, when very often they happen right here in our own backyard. And workers' exploitation does happen in the United States for sure. Simply judging clothes and products based on a label is not enough anymore. We all have to be responsible to do more research into what we're buying.